The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with an unusual tension, a cold anxiety that clung to the air like frost. The towering, metallic walls seemed to close in as Commander Threx entered the room, his imposing figure casting long shadows across the floor. The Council had never looked so uncertain, so fearful. "We've received disturbing reports," Councillor Vrex began, his voice low and strained. "An unknown force has decimated 3 of our frontier outposts. There were no survivors, no remains. Only one message was recovered, and it was brief: humans." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Threx's expression remained stoic, though a flicker of curiosity sparked in his mind. He had heard the whispers, the myths of Earth's elusive inhabitants, primitive, insignificant beings. But annihilating entire outposts? That was something else entirely. Humans? Threx's voice was edged with skepticism. "We've studied them before. Their technology is rudimentary, their species divided. Why should we fear them now?" Councillor Vrex leaned forward, his eyes dark and foreboding. "These aren't the humans we once knew. They've changed, evolved. And now, they are fighting back." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Fear was a foreign concept to Threx, but the Council's unease was contagious. The galaxy had faced countless threats before, but this was different. "Commander," Threx continued, his tone hardening, "we're assigning you to investigate. Neutralize the threat, and ensure it never reaches our core systems." Threx nodded, though doubts gnawed at the edge of his confidence. His mission was clear: find the humans, assess their capabilities, and eliminate them if necessary. But beneath his calm exterior, a shadow of unease loomed, an uncertainty that he had not felt in decades. As Threx departed the chamber, he couldn't shake the sense that this mission was unlike any he had faced before. The galaxy's mightiest fleets had crumbled under his command, yet now he was tasked with hunting a species he had long dismissed as insignificant. But the reports, the fear in Vrex's eyes, suggested something far more dangerous than he had anticipated. His ship, the Resolute, loomed in the docking bay, a vessel forged for conquest. Threx boarded with his usual precision, his crew snapping to attention as he strode onto the bridge. "Set course for the frontier," Threx ordered, his voice firm. "We're going to find out what these humans are truly capable of." As the Resolute surged into the void, Threx allowed himself a moment of reflection. He had faced countless enemies, each more formidable than the last, but this time there was an unfamiliar tension in the air. The humans had been underestimated for too long, it seemed. Now they were ready to show the galaxy why that had been a mistake. Uncertainty gnawed at the edge of Threx's mind as he stared into the endless darkness ahead. The reports could be exaggerated, the fears unfounded. But as the stars blurred past, he couldn't escape the feeling that this mission would change everything. For the first time in his long career, Threx felt a whisper of fear. The Resolute cut through the cold void, its sleek hull gleaming against the backdrop of distant stars. Commander Threx stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the swirling nebula ahead. His crew worked in silent efficiency, but the tension was palpable. The mission to investigate the human threat weighed heavily on everyone, a sense of dread creeping into the minds of even the most seasoned officers. "Commander, we're approaching the last known coordinates of Outpost Theta," Lieutenant Chris reported, her voice steady, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of apprehension. "Prepare for a full scan," Threx ordered, his tone calm but resolute. "I want to know what we're dealing with." The Resolute glided into the nebula, its sensors probing the eerie mists. On the viewscreen, faint traces of wreckage began to appear, shattered fragments of ships, twisted metal drifting aimlessly in the void. The scene was hauntingly quiet, the only sound the faint hum of the ship's engines. "No life signs detected," Chris confirmed, her fingers dancing across the console. "It's as if the outpost was erased." Threx frowned, studying the debris. "Zoom in on that sector," he commanded, pointing to a dense cluster of wreckage. As the image sharpened, a strange pattern emerged, a series of precise, surgical strikes that had sliced through the outpost's defenses with terrifying accuracy. This wasn't a battle, Threx muttered, more to himself than to his crew. It was an extermination. His words sent a shiver through the bridge. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken fear. The outpost had been one of the most fortified in the sector, yet it had been dismantled with chilling efficiency. The humans had always been underestimated, but this level of precision was beyond anything the galaxy had seen. "Commander, I'm picking up an energy signature," Chris interrupted, her voice tinged with alarm. "It's faint, but it's there, bearing 34.2. On screen," Threx ordered. The view screen shifted to reveal a small, dark object barely visible against the nebula's glow. It was a human vessel, but unlike any Threx had encountered. It was sleek, almost predatory in design, its black hull absorbing the light around it. There was no sign of activity, no communication, just the ominous presence of a ship that shouldn't have existed. "Is it a trap?" Chris asked, her fingers hovering over the weapon's controls. Threx's eyes narrowed as he studied the ship. "No, it's a message." A tense silence followed as the Resolute drifted closer. The human vessel remained still, its dark form looming like a specter. Threx could feel the weight of its gaze, as if the ship itself was watching, waiting. His instincts screamed to retreat, but he pushed the fear aside. This was what he had come for, a glimpse into the true nature of the enemy. "Open a channel," Threx ordered. His voice was steady, but his heart pounded in his chest. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but they obeyed. A crackle of static filled the bridge as the comms linked to the human ship. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, a voice, cold and devoid of emotion, echoed through the speakers. "You have trespassed where you do not belong." The words sent a chill down Threx's spine. This was no ordinary enemy. The humans were more than a threat. They were a force of nature, a reckoning that had been unleashed upon the galaxy. And they were making it clear that no one was safe. "Stand down," Threx commanded, his voice firm. "We are here to negotiate." The silence that followed was suffocating, the tension on the bridge nearly unbearable. Then, the human ship powered up, its engines flaring to life. It didn't attack, but it didn't retreat either. Instead, it remained, a silent reminder that the rules of war had changed. Threx clenched his fists, a cold determination settling in his chest. The humans had sent their message. Now, it was time to respond. The Resolute hung in the cold void, a lone sentinel amid the scattered debris of Outpost Theta. Commander Threx stood on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the human vessel that loomed ominously on the view screen. The ship, black and silent, was a stark contrast to the bustling, bright design of the Resolute. The crew was tense, their faces illuminated by the dim glow of the consoles. "Commander, we've attempted multiple communications with the human vessel, but there's been no response," Lieutenant Chris reported, her voice strained but controlled. "Maintain the channel," Threx ordered. "We need to know their intentions." The comms crackled to life again, and the same cold voice from before filled the bridge. "This is your final warning. Leave now, or face the consequences." Threx's jaw tightened. The human's tone was unyielding, their message clear. It was not an invitation for diplomacy but a demand for retreat. He could feel the pressure mounting, not just from the external threat but from the internal expectations of his crew. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Threx said, though he remained firmly in his seat. "We'll show them that we are not to be intimidated." The crew scrambled to execute the command, their movements sharp and precise. The Resolute adjusted its course, its powerful engines pushing it away from the human vessel. The shift in momentum was smooth, but the tension in the bridge was palpable, a tangible force that tightened around them like a vice. "Commander, incoming data from the human ship," Chris announced. "They're sending a transmission." Threx's eyes narrowed as he studied the data streaming in. The transmission was encrypted with advanced codes, far beyond anything the Resolute had encountered. His fingers tapped the console, attempting to decrypt the message. "Can you get anything?" Threx asked, his voice edged with frustration. Chris's eyes darted across her console. "It's difficult, but I'm getting fragments. It looks like..." A sudden jolt interrupted her, throwing the crew off balance. The bridge lights flickered, and a series of alarms blared. "Shields holding at 80%, Lieutenant Wren reported, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "We've been hit by an energy pulse." Threx gripped the edge of his console. "Status on the human ship?" "Still stationary," Chris replied. "They're not attacking again, but they're obviously targeting us. It's as if they're testing our defenses." Threx's mind raced. The human vessel was toying with them, probing for weaknesses. The lack of a direct assault was unsettling, indicating a strategy designed to unnerve and destabilize. The humans were not only a threat, they were a calculated and cunning enemy. "Return fire," Threx ordered. "Target their propulsion systems." The Resolute S weapon systems whirred to life, launching a volley of energy bursts at the human vessel. The impacts were minimal, leaving the ship's hull unharmed but signaling their resolve. The human vessel remained steadfast, its dark silhouette an ever-present reminder of the looming threat. "We're not making a dent," Chris reported, frustration evident in her tone. "Their hull is reinforced beyond our capabilities." Threx's eyes met Chris's, both of them understanding the gravity of their situation. They were facing an adversary with superior technology and a strategic mindset that outmatched their own. "Prepare boarding teams," Threx commanded. "If we can't breach their defenses with firepower, we'll have to try another approach." The crews sprang into action, donning their combat gear and preparing for the possibility of direct engagement. The air was thick with tension as they readied themselves for the unknown challenge ahead. As Threx prepared to lead the boarding party, he couldn't shake the feeling of being ensnared in a web spun by an enemy far more formidable than anticipated. The humans had made their intentions clear. They were not to be underestimated. And as the Resolute S crew braced for the confrontation to come, Threx knew one thing with certainty: the galaxy's balance was on the brink of a seismic shift. With a final, resolute glance at the darkened human vessel, Threx led his team into the unknown, each step echoing the gravity of the conflict they were about to face. The dim, eerie glow of the boarding craft's interior was broken only by the occasional flicker of the external lights as it approached the human vessel. Commander Threx, clad in heavy combat gear, surveyed his team with steely resolve. His eyes, usually calm and calculating, now held a rare edge of grim determination. The mission was no longer just about proving their might. It was a desperate bid for survival. "Team, we're about to breach their hull. Stay sharp." Threx's voice cut through the low hum of the craft's engines. His tone brooked no argument, and his crew responded with a nod of shared focus. The breach was imminent, and the stakes had never been higher. As the boarding craft's docking clamps engaged with a resonant clang, Threx felt a rush of cold anticipation. The craft's airlock hissed open, revealing a corridor bathed in an ominous, pulsing red light. The ship's interior was stark and utilitarian, a marked contrast to the sleek, advanced technology of the Resolute. "Scan for life signs," Threx ordered, his voice carrying the gravity of the situation. Lieutenant Chris, her eyes glued to her scanner, nodded. "We're detecting movement ahead, multiple signatures, but they're not coming straight at us." "Prepare for contact," Threx said. He motioned for his team to advance, their footsteps echoing in the confined space. The corridor twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the heart of the human ship. The team moved with practiced efficiency, their senses alert. Suddenly, a sharp, metallic clang reverberated through the corridor, followed by an explosion that sent sparks showering from the ceiling. The team instinctively took cover, their weapons raised and scanning for threats. "Ambush!" Threx shouted, his voice a stark command in the chaos. From the shadows, human soldiers emerged, their faces concealed by advanced helmets and visors. The clash was immediate and fierce. The humans' tactics were fluid, almost instinctual, their combat style a chaotic dance of precision and aggression. Threx engaged with a swift, calculated movement, his every strike purposeful and direct. He had faced many enemies, but the raw determination and skill of the human soldiers were unlike anything he had encountered. His heart pounded in his chest as he parried an incoming blow, narrowly deflecting a strike aimed at his midsection. "Chris, Ren, cover our flanks!" Threx barked as he pushed forward. The corridors became a battleground, the clamor of weaponry and shouts mingling with the acrid smell of smoke and ozone. Chris and Ren provided the necessary support, their firepower effective in driving back the human soldiers. Yet, despite their strategic advantage, the humans seemed relentless, their resolve unwavering even in the face of overwhelming odds. "Commander, they're regrouping!" Chris called out, her voice strained as she fired another burst of energy. Threx glanced at the map displayed on his visor, noting a sudden increase in energy signatures converging on their position. "We need to secure their command center and end this. Move!" They pressed on, navigating the labyrinthine passages until they reached a heavily fortified door. Threx's gaze met Chris's, and he gave a decisive nod. The door burst open with a controlled explosion, revealing a room filled with advanced control consoles and a small contingent of human officers. The room fell into tense silence as the officers turned, their expressions a mix of surprise and steely determination. "Stand down!" Threx commanded, stepping forward. His voice echoed with authority, though he could sense the weight of their imminent confrontation. One of the human officers stepped forward, his face obscured by a sleek helmet. "You're out of your depth, Commander. You should have left when you had the chance." The officer's words were punctuated by a low hum as the room's energy shields activated, creating an almost palpable barrier between them and their foes. The tension crackled in the air, thick and suffocating. "We're not going anywhere," Threx said, his tone resolute. "We're here to end this, once and for all." The standoff reached a boiling point, each side waiting for the other to make a move. Threx knew that their next actions would decide the outcome of this confrontation. The human officer's eyes, visible through the visor, were cold and unyielding, a reflection of the dire stakes that had become their reality. As Threx prepared for the next move, the feeling of inevitability hung heavy in the air. The conflict had reached a critical juncture, and every decision, every action, would reverberate through the annals of this desperate struggle. With a deep breath, Threx readied himself, knowing that the outcome of this confrontation would reshape their destinies. The final gambit was about to unfold, and there would be no turning back.